Alex Hormozi told us that if you want to scale a business successfully, you need to understand your metrics and your data. I mean, he tweeted this directly. He says, you can tell how good someone is at anything by the quality and quantity of the data they track. Note, if you think you're good and you don't track many data points or ones that lead to outcomes, you may not be as good as you think you are. Or he went a little harder on this one. He said, the first step of making progress is tracking progress. If you don't track, you don't care. So if you're a coach, consultant, agency, business owner, and you actually do care about growing your business, then I want you to watch this video all the way through. Because in this video, not only am I going to break down our entire metrics tracking system that has helped build Closers.io into a 30 million plus per year company, but also I'm literally just going to give you the spreadsheets so you can use within your own business. And there's not going to be an opt-in. You don't put in a name, phone number, email, anything like that. I'm just going to give it off directly to you. Now I'm just going to assume this is probably your first video seeing me here on YouTube. So instead of just like taking my word for it, I actually pulled a ton of quotes from different billionaires and millionaires that talk about this exact same thing. You can pause and read all these if you want to, but I'm just going to read a couple of them here, right? Warren Buffett says, if you can't read the scorecard, you don't know the game. If you don't know the game, you can't win, right? Mark Cuban, know your business, know your numbers. It's the difference between being successful and being a statistic. Damon John, you have to be obsessed with your numbers. If you don't know them, someone else will, and they'll use them against you. Jumping over to, let's see, Elon Musk, right? Numbers don't lie. You can't manage what you don't measure. Jeff Bezos, we are comfortable planting seeds and letting them grow, but only if the data supports the direction. So again, there's a couple others on here. You can pause, but it's not just me saying this. Billionaires and millionaires are telling you need to understand your numbers. So let's talk about how to understand the numbers and use it to build a business. So within Closers.io, we teach what is called the big three. This is the big three that if you just do these three things, it'll allow you to build $1 million company. So the big three are daily meetings, end of day reports, and proper tracking. So the majority of this video, I mean, really this whole video, we're going to talk about proper tracking and how to do so. Let me know down in the comments if you want to go a little bit deeper into these other two things, daily meetings and end of day reports, then we can make some further videos about them. Essentially, daily meetings, have a meeting every single day with people on your team that could be different departments, right? Your marketing team, your sales team, your CS or fulfillment team, right? Now I know people are like, oh, meetings are a waste of time, but what meetings do is it decreases the amount of time to create a feedback loop. If you just have one meeting every single week, you can only optimize in 7-day sprints versus if you have a meeting on a Monday and then you have a meeting on a Tuesday and you figure out, okay, what happened yesterday? For the rest of the week, you're then optimizing versus you got to wait a whole other week if you're just doing weekly meetings. And also end of day reports. Basically, this is everyone on your team sending an end of day report to their direct report. So if you have a manager up top or heck, even if it's just by yourself and you have a VA, right? Have your VA send you a list of what they've done throughout the day. The easiest framework, whether it's Slack, Telegram, Google Docs, I don't really care what it is, but you would have them send what they did today and then ultimately how they're feeling, right? You want to see from a data perspective or from a, an overall, like, what did they do today perspective, but also you want to feel like they're human beings. You want to figure out, okay, how are they feeling throughout the day? Because a lot of times someone's performance is going to be dictated by what's happening in their personal life and ultimately how they're feeling. I know what you're saying, Aaron, shut up with all this, this woo-woo nonsense, but let's actually jump into just the two different funnels that we usually optimize on and how you can pull different data points from every single one of these funnels. So we're really going to cover two types of funnels here. So, and these are like the majority, if we're looking to hit your first 100 grand a month, these are really, honestly, even 500 grand a month, you can do that with this first one. So this is basically your VSL funnel. And then down here, we have the, oh, that was weird, DM ads funnel. So essentially you have an ad on Instagram or on Facebook, or mostly Instagram, right? Is they send a DM or they click an ad that sends a DM and then you have a conversation with them. Now, this is basically the funnel flow as it stands. So you have some sort of ad, right? Some sort of advertisement that could be on Instagram, Facebook, whatever it may be. And that's going to actually link them over to some sort of opt-in or usually on a landing page. We'll just put lander. So a lander where they put in their name, phone number, and email. I didn't put it in here, but right in here is usually the VSL, right? The training, the video sales letter that they're watching. After they watch the VSL, they have the option to usually fill out some sort of application. From the application, they're going to have the option to then book a call, right, with you or your sales team. And then they're going to have that sales call, and they are either going to become a client or they are not going to become a client. Now, just keep in mind, there's some caveats in here, right? You might not run a VSL funnel, but you might run a, let's say, direct to app funnel. So it could be an ad that goes directly into an application in order for them to fill out an application to book a call with you. If you don't have as much volume or as much ad spend, you literally might just run an ad to a booking form, right? So they can just directly book a call. Now, keep in mind, I'll take another quote from Alex Hormozi, is he talks about this idea of flow versus friction. Or I think his direct quote was like, you want to create flow and then add friction. So ultimately what that means, and this is like a big bottle. I'm glad I thought of this because I completely forgot, is one of the biggest mistakes that I see people make from an ad perspective is they try to add too much friction too early, right? So I'll give you an example here. And this just like, I can't tell you how many times I've heard someone say like Facebook ads don't work. And then I go through their funnel. I'm like, well, dude, it's because you have way too much friction for what you're trying to have people do. So for example, let's say you have a business and I'll just go at the high end, or I'll just use us as a direct example, is let's say your product is $15,000, but you're only spending $100 a day, right? And then let's say you're assuming we have this entire process. So you have the VSL, or let's go back, you have the opt-in, you have the VSL, and then you have the app, right? And you have the call, right? The call booking. If you're only spending $100 a day, and let's just say to go through this entire process to ultimately get them to book that call, let's say the average booked call price through all that friction is like $600. So with that math is we can understand that if we're spending $100 a day, it's going to take us 6 days to actually book a single call. So what happens in people's brains is they just assume like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna like spend this money. And then they're like, they go through day 1 and day 2 and day 3. They're like, oh my gosh, I'm not getting any bookings. What's going on? Facebook ads don't work. But it's just, you've number 1, set the wrong expectation. And then also number 2, you're just not spending enough, right? You're not gonna spend $100 to get a $15,000 client, right? If that was the case, then everybody would be running ads and everyone would, be billionaires at this point. So if you're in that position and you're like, well, dang, I need more of the booked calls, you're going to do one of two things. You're going to decrease friction, right? Take out the application and just give them directly to book a call from the opt-in, or you just take off the opt-in altogether and you just allow everyone to book calls. Now, of course, you might be saying, if you know anything about marketing, is as you decrease, right? As you decrease friction, you're also going to you're going to decrease your quality. So it is constantly this ebb and flow game and push and pull of what is the budget that I'm using? Can I decrease friction so that I get more throughput of the actual funnel to do, number 1, make better decisions. Number 2, actually get the end result that you're looking for and not make this thing go in your brain of like, oh, Facebook ads don't work. I'm just going to go do something else. I'm going to go down another rabbit hole. So that being said, kind of a little side tangent, but very, very important if you're in that position where you're like, okay, my ads aren't working, what's going on? So that is usually, for the sake of this example, is we're going to track metrics around this entire part of the funnel. And then let's just say, for example, you don't have every single piece of it. All you're going to do in the tracking sheets that I'm going to give you is just take some of these pieces off, right? Or I guess you wouldn't. Yeah, I guess you could if you wanted to, you can take the app and just go from opt-in to book call. But I digress. So that is like the usual VSL funnel, kind of how it flows. The second one that you can do, a lot of people are doing DM ads these days, is they have on Instagram, usually we'll just do, for clarification, we'll do IG DM ads, and they have the advertisement that goes to the DM, right? So they'll usually DM some sort of keyword. Let's say the keyword is start. Once that keyword is sent through, then we have conversations, right? We have inbound, and conversations, literally all that is like, we'll just say like a single back and forth. So for example, I don't know why this pen is not working. There we go. Back and forth. So essentially they send you a DM, you send them something back, and then they respond. I classify that as a conversation, right? And then that is going to lead into a booked call, also to a sales call, into a one lost call. They either become a client or they do not become a client. Okay, cool, Aaron. That all makes sense, but how do I actually track these numbers? What should I be tracking? Well, what we're going to do, again, we're going to splice over here to the actual tracking sheet. But what we want to understand, just from a visual standpoint here, is we want to be able to, in a spreadsheet, track every single part of this funnel. Because, let's just say, I'll use an example, is let's just say we have, this is not a good example, but let's just say this is like a pipe, right? A pipe where water is flowing through. So if water is coming through one end, right? And let's just say we didn't have visibility and seeing that there's these holes here, right? all we would know is we would look over here and be like, where's all the water? Like, why aren't we actually generating water, or why aren't we generating closed deals, right? It's because there's these hidden things that if you don't understand where these pieces are or what is happening within, in this example, a pipe, but in your example would be a funnel, if you don't understand those constraints or those leaks, then it becomes very, very difficult to grow a business in a consistent and efficient and a scalable way. So that being said, we're going to splice over to the actual spreadsheet here. I'm going to give you some insights of exactly how to optimize, fill these into a sheets. And like I said, you'll get direct access to the sheet. So I don't know why you wouldn't stick around. We'll check over there now. All right. So welcome to my lovely spreadsheet here. Actually, I want to tell you guys a story super quickly that's very related to this. And hopefully it helps you get into the mode of tracking data. So one of the things, like if you're someone that hates spreadsheets and numbers and you're like, oh my gosh, like spreadsheets that give me so much anxiety. When I tell you 3 to 4 years ago, I was in the exact same mindset. That was me. And the reason is because it was the story that I was telling myself. Like if we go back to like grade school, let's say like more specifically like middle school, high school, when math starts to become getting a lot harder, is I was always bad at math, or I would always tell myself that I was bad at math. So, one of my I can just remember it, like SAT, ACTs, probably like the most anxious I'd been in my entire life, like just actual standardized testing. And I just always told myself that, right? Especially what are they called? Word problems, right? Word problems, literally the death of me. I hated reading and comprehension, and I hated math. So it's like both these things coming together, it was terrible. So anyway, but once I made the decision, Cole, my business partner at Closure.io, is when he told me, he's like, well, dude, the reason, this was when I first came on as like literally a video editor, is he was like, dude, we need to track these numbers because of this, right? Because it allows us to make decisions better. It gamifies the whole process. And without the data, we won't be able to actually grow, right? And at the time, I think we were doing like $1 million a month and have scaled to 3 to 4 million a month, right? So obviously being able to do that has actually been a big game changer. So, once I decided to do that and really just buckled in, and for 30 days, is I started to see the results of doing that. And it did 2 things for me. Number one, again, it builds up your confidence to make decisions based on data and not based on feeling. Anytime within your business, you start a sentence with, I think, I feel, you are making decisions based on feeling and emotion, right? But when you have the data, you start to make data-driven decisions. And the second thing I was going to mention is it really gamifies the whole thing, right? Things that I hated, math, reading, school, right? Things that I love, gaming. So if we could get better at math and really gamify the process of filling this in to where, again, you're not making decisions based on emotion and on emotion and feeling, is you can look at the spreadsheet and be like, oh, cool. If we want to make 200 grand this month, all we got to do is do this, and this based on our data, and bada bing, bada boom, we're there. Now, obviously I'm oversimplifying it, but it takes out the guesswork and just gets you into full on grind mode to be able to hit the metrics that you need to in order to ultimately scale. So all that story aside, let's jump into what the spreadsheet is and ultimately how to use it. So if we're going back to the entire, like if we look at this here, right, all the way down, it's basically just what we were talking about, right? Leads here would be like opt-ins, applications, booked calls, closes and everything across the board, right? They become a client or they don't. But this is a little bit more granular so that we can make more granular decisions. So again, if you want this spreadsheet, just go to the first link down in the description below, grab this sheet. You don't have to put in a name, phone number, email, anything like that. You're just going to get direct access to this so you can use it within your business. So let's jump into this. So first things first is this is the entire funnel, right? As we mentioned. So what you're going to do is you get these pieces of data from the different softwares that you might be using within your business. So again, ad spend usually is going to come from Facebook Ads Manager, Instagram Ads Manager, you're boosting, right? You would just filter by how much money went out from the ad account yesterday. And here, just a quick note is you want to track. So let's say today, for example, is the 25th. This is a little bit different because we're not like up to date per se. This is just starting at the beginning of the year, but today's the 25th. What you're going to do is you're going to look at the 24th, right? Let's say in the morning, you're going to look at the 24th, the day before. You're going to track yesterday's metrics today is basically what we call it. So I would go into Facebook Ads Manager and let's just say I spent $500, right? So $500, let's just put a little money sign here. And then what we're going to do is go down the funnel and do this granularly on every single piece of the puzzle. So link clicks, for example, you can look at this by, for example, you can do, maybe you have like a bit.ly link where you can go into bit.ly in the back end and you can see how many link clicks there are. Or the easy way you can do it is just, this would be like page views. So you would go into your funnels in GHL or ClickFunnels or whatever. You can go to the little, I believe it's like analytics section under the funnel itself. and then you can put in, let's say it's like page views. So I don't have a direct KPI number around this, but let's just say for the sake of example, you have you got 100 link clicks, right? 100 page views. Now, let's just say for leads, right? Let's say our average, let's just do some math here really quickly. Let's just say we had 25 leads. So let's say our cost per lead is what is that? Cost per lead is $20, right? Let's say on average, cost per lead is $20. And then we would go in and we'd fill in our application. So let's say based on this, maybe applications would be people that like after they watch the VSL in this example, after they opt in and put in their name, phone number, email, applications, let's say we got 10 applications. And then let's say out of those applications, we got, I don't know, maybe we got 6 booked calls, and then calls on calendar. I'll come back and explain this here in a second. But let's say on this specific day, so here's a specific example, is the reason we do this every single day is we want to capture averages over the month. So shows is how many, no matter what, let's say you have, today, let's say you booked a call for today, 2 days ago or 3 days ago or 5 days ago, whatever, is just how many people on this specific date showed up for their call. So let's just say in this example, we had, three shows, right? Offers made is based on these 3 people that showed up for their call, how many people are actually like offers. So let's say all these people were super qualified and all 3 of them were offered. And then let's say one person closed. The cash collected on that, let's say was $10K. And then the revenue, let's say it's a $15,000 deal. So as you can see, if I move over just a little bit, we can see that the totals are calculated over here, which will make sense, obviously, as we continue to figure this out. So then what we're going to do is, so calls on calendar, essentially what this is, so calls on calendar and booked calls are 2 different things. So booked calls are, let's say we're doing it yesterday. How many booked calls were booked yesterday? So in this case, it's 6. Now calls on calendar would be how many calls were on the calendar. So for example, this number could be, I don't know, depending on your sales team or how savage you are, this could be 10 because previous days before they might have loaded up the, the first in this example, they would have loaded that up with calls. So there will be a discrepancy in here, but we just want to understand because this is going to give us our show rate, right? Because we take this number, calls on calendar, and then how many of them are showing. So in this case, this would not be a good example, but let's just say, for example, 5, because that would be a terrible show rate. But you can see there, even just like using that example, is if I had 10 calls on the calendar and only 3 showed, that's what is that math? 70 or 25%. No, or 25% show rate, right? 75% no show rate. We're going in and fixing that immediately, right? So that would be the option there. So obviously, like 1 day of data doesn't really do a ton for you. But let me give you a dramatic example so that we can start figuring out, okay, here's how we're going to start making decisions. So let's just say the next day we also spend $500. This would be 2 kind of separate ideas. But let's just say, we have, let's just say the front end of the funnel is fine. And then let's say leads was 5, right? What we can start to do as we're looking at it and how we're making decisions here is I can look at these 2, the discrepancy between these 2 numbers and see, okay, 100 people actually landed on the page and only 5% of them converted. So then all you would do is you would take 5 divided by 100 and you would see that you had a 5%, well, you can see why I need a calculator. Obviously, that should have been super. That should have been super obvious, but that's a 5% conversion from link clicks to leads. And if we know anything about marketing in terms of KPIs, is your general conversion rate here should be 20%. So I am like 75% lower than the average. So I need to go in here and go to the funnel and figure out what run wrong here. Was it a technical issue, right? Or was it something that maybe I could optimize this landing page in order to get more leads that are of people that are coming through, right? But again, if you don't have these numbers, right? If you're not tracking these on a daily basis and looking at them on a daily basis, let's say you maybe look at metrics once a week or once a month, right? You would have no idea that your funnel is literally broken. A great example, I was doing an audit of a buddy of mine the other day. And, I was looking at some of his metrics and he wasn't really tracking it. And I went to I was like, dude, just send me your funnel. I went to his funnel and his opt-in page was broken, right? He came to me and he was like, dude, I'm not getting the sale. Like, I'm not generating like the leads. Like, what's going on? So I was like, well, dude, let's pull up the funnel. And he was like, yeah, I'm not really getting like any opt-ins. This is crazy. I was like, well, what does that mean? He's like, I'm not getting any opt-ins. So I just went to his funnel and I was like, dude, Your opt-in page isn't working. Like the button to submit the application is taking like 15 seconds to load to actually submit. So making that one little change because we understood the data is how we're able to make the decision to move forward. So let's go further down the funnel, but let's just say and show you kind of how to make some more of these decisions here. So let's just say, let's consider this to be better, right? Let's say we're industry standard, we're at the 20 here, but then let's just say our applications was 1. Right? So now that we understand this is we see, okay, so we had 1 application out of 25 leads. There could be a lot of things here. There could be maybe the VSL on this page was not enticing, or maybe the VSL was super off of who was being advertised to on the front end. Maybe the, I don't know, again, technical issue, maybe the application just wasn't working. Right, but we wouldn't know unless that. And I'm going to go down all the way down the funnel to give you an example of the solutions that can be had when you understand each of your pieces of data. So then, for example, so let's just say again, this is on on standard. Let's say we have 10 applications, and let's say again here we have 1 booked call. So this is assuming that your application and your call booking is 2 separate things, right? Some people, they'll have like a Calendly page and they'll have the call booking and like a couple questions before. If that's the case, you would just delete this application section altogether and just have it as booked call. So what are the decisions that we can make based on 10 and 1 here? So you can always default to tech. It's not always going to be that. Like that's actually probably the less assumption that I usually make. But one that I can look here is maybe the booked call, maybe, I don't know, maybe there wasn't a specific time for them to book. Maybe the call booking software wasn't giving like the right times, right? Or maybe just wasn't online. Maybe, it could be a lot of different things. Maybe they, I don't know, they just didn't see the value in doing that after they filled out the application. So I would just go into this section here. If these were my numbers, seeing that it's a 10% app to booking rate, is I would just figure out, okay, how can we optimize in between those? But again, let's just say this is back to our original number. Calls on Cal, this would not really be something that you can optimize on a funnel perspective. This would be more like a sales ops issue. But let's just say we had 5 here. And then, okay, here's a great example. Let's say we had 1 person show up. So this is where it starts to transition from this booked calls into these shows. Is where it starts to transition from a front-end marketing issue. Like front-end marketing could always be the issue, right? But this is where it starts to go into like sales ops or post booking. So for example, this is not a good close rate. What's 1 divided by 6? Again, not good at math. So that would give me a 16% show rate, which is absolutely terrible. I mean, these days in the coaching space, it's getting rough out here in these streets. But we would start to look at this. What decisions can we make? Well, it could be a tech thing. Maybe they weren't getting the automated reminders. Maybe, Google 2.5 years ago made this update to where if someone books in and they're not already in your like Google or in like your calendar overall, it will not give them the invite, right? So we've had to go like super hard on different things to verify those calls, right? Did the automated text reminders not go out, or did they just was the offer not that great and they just didn't see the value in actually booking that call? But again, we can at least now we have an idea or an assumption or a hypothesis. Then we just need to go back and figure out, okay, how do we test that hypothesis and how do we make this number better? And then from here, right, so let's say the show rate here is good and we have 5 of the six calls booked. Keep in mind, as you start to scale is you lose efficiency. So a lot of times if you're booking 6 calls and 5 of them are showing, that's going to be pretty average. It starts to get, for us, I mean, we're booking 80 calls a day. So that's where it starts to break down a little bit in terms of efficiency, but that's just always going to happen as you continue to grow. So offers made. So let's just say, again, we're staying on par here. And let's say offers made was 1. This could be a marketing issue. So again, if 5 people are showing up and 1 offers made, could be 2 things that pop into my head. Number 1 is that the closer maybe took too long on the call. They asked too many questions. They went over and they just couldn't make the offer because they physically didn't have enough time because they had a call afterwards. Or they just weren't qualified, right? Maybe they just all weren't on the ICP, right? The ideal client profile. And that then stems that back here to being a marketing issue, right? But we want to have multiple days of data in order to make those decisions. So, but then again, let's say, all these people were qualified and we had 5 here and our closes was 1. Great. So now we realize that this is a sales issue. So we would optimize on the actual sales process, listen to some of the calls, do some QC and figure out what was the issue. Why did only 1 person close? But let's just say, well, in this example, right, me being a math whiz, this is 20%. So this is not like 20% is industry standard. However, if 5 offers were made, I would still be looking at here because like this is such a low scale. I would try to figure out why these people didn't close. And then again, this gives you the data to be able to look and say, okay, like this could be an issue. But then if you listen to the call and then you say, well, probably it would be really hard to close those people, you can then make a decision based on that data that you have. And then last but not least, if we have, let's say our revenue, right, we close that deal and it's $15,000, but only $2,000 were collected, then we can start to see, okay, so this QC'd call, right, actually listening to the sales call, or if you're doing it yourself, could you have collected more cash? What could you have done to collect more cash, right? And making those decisions across the board. So hopefully this gives you an idea of just like how you can fill this in. Really, like the way that I would look at this is it gives you the day-to-day visibility. However, I would not make decisions based on things that happen day to day. It is really, really good. Like, unless it was like super, like astronomically different in terms of the metrics. Like I said earlier, like if you're getting 200 link clicks and you're getting 2 opt-ins, well, obviously that's probably going to be either you have a really bad landing page or there's just something technically that's going wrong. So let's just go in for the sake of doing this. We'll fill in for the DM apps and because the front end metrics will be a little bit different based on decisions that you make. So let's run through that, and let me just move this a little bit so we can see totals here. So let's just say on average, let's say you're spending $500. And again, here, let's just say that you got 10 followers. Well, that is not good. Average, we'll say cost per follower. And from what I understand, we don't do a ton of DM ads specifically, but from a lot of people that I've talked to is, they'll get like $3 to $5 cost per lead, right? Cost per follower. So if this metric were right, this would be more close to about $100. Then this would be DMs. So DMs would be inbound DMs, like we said, in the screen share, is people that are sending DMs to you, or sending DMs to you through the specific keyword. So then what we're going to do is look at DMs here. And we're going, let's say, DMs, there was only 10 DMs. So what's going to happen is I would look at, okay, is this DM keyword optimized in the best way possible? Cool. How do we make that better? But then let's say we get 20, because that's about 20%. Not too bad. Convos had right here. So let's say there's only 2 conversations. So conversation, like we said earlier, is the back and forth between you and the prospect. So, for example, if this is 2, that's not too good. And what we can do to optimize on this is we would change the first message that goes out, because obviously it didn't resonate with the people, especially if they're seeing those messages. So I would look at, are they seeing the messages, or are they even opening them in the first place, right? That could be a whole other issue of deliverability. But let's say this is okay. In the conversation, you had 10 conversations, and then we booked, let's say booked 1 call. This is not good. So we would look at, then go into this entire conversation and figure out, where was the drop-off point? Was there a question that was too intrusive and then they ghosted, which is basically the drop-off point, right? Was there too many questions back and forth? Because that could lead to a drop-off point there. But then, of course, let's say you're a savage DM setter and you are closing more there. So then from there, everything else moving forward is basically exactly the same from what we talked about on the previous one. There might be some other changes that you make, right, a little bit down here, especially if you believe your hypothesis is that it's directly attributed or directly correlated to the marketing angles that are going out there. That would be the only thing really different, but everything else here moving forward is going to be more around sales ops, reminders, texts, things like that. So hopefully now you understand how important metrics are. Again, grab the sheet down below if you want to. First link down in the description. Also click the video on screen. This is going to show you exactly how to take a lot of what we learned over the last couple of videos and use AI to make and just duplicate a ton of your ads, which honestly, AI ads have been some of our best performing ads, cutting our costs into thirds, sometimes even fourths. So check out the video on screen. Also click the other link down in the description, book a call with my team if you want us to basically take over your marketing and your ads and help you scale your business. Hope you enjoyed. Click the video. See you guys in the next one.